Done, done. Okay. Welcome to the Skull Sessions podcast. I'm your host, Henk, and this is Wile E Young. Is that how I see your name?
Yep, that is correct.
Okay. Why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself? Well, is it
Well,
Wile E? Wile? How would
it's
you
literally it's exactly like the coyote from Looney Tunes, Wile E.
like Wile
So
E Coyote?
yeah, exactly. Well, I'm a author of horror, author award winning at this point with that Splatterpunk Award I won for Magpie Coffin, and I kind of range all over the place on what I write, from splatter westerns to cosmic horror, ghost story, creature feature. I've done a little bit of everything at this point.
Do you have one that you prefer more than another, like cosmic horror or Western horror or something like that?
I mean, I prefer. I made my mark with the Western horror, so I do have a soft spot for it.
Okay. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think Western horror has a lot of intrigue when it's done right. Or even when they do like they kind of do like weird stuff with what was that movie with the book and what was it called? I don't know, but it was like End of the World, and there was like one book that was like it's supposed to like the guy was blind, but he was carrying it with him, and everyone was trying to go ahead.
Book of Eli.
Book of Eli, yeah. So it wasn't really Western, but it had a lot of Western themes in it, and I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, absolutely love that movie. It's especially some of the more subdued takes in it. There's like little clues that people he run into are cannibals, like the whole handshaking thing.
Right.
It's a great movie.
Yeah, I've seen it twice. I didn't even pick up everything. Every time I watch it, I pick up something new. But like that's kind of like a apocalyptic dystopian with a little bit of like kind of a Western feel to it. Is that what we do? Is it more like straightforward, takes place in like the 1800s?
Oh, mine's straightforward. Takes place in the 1800s because that's the kind of thing. That's the ones I like. Like High Plains Drifter is one of the ones that comes to mind with Clint Eastwood because that has a lot of weird Western themes to it. And I always said that it's the darkest of his movies, but it didn't go far enough.
Right, right. Well, was it one of his best selling movies? There wasn't like a massive box office draw, right? That was I think more of like a cult hit later on.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of his spaghetti westerns were pretty much cult hits, except for the Man with No Name trilogy. That's what really got spaghetti westerns off the ground in the United States, and Pale Rider came later, which is also a horror western. So,
What about the Dark Tower? Have you ever read that?
oh yeah, I love the Dark Tower. The fourth book, Wizard in the Glass, is my favorite of all of them, probably because it's the most western out of all of them.
Did you see the movie?
Yeah, I saw the movie.
What did you think of the movie?
I mean, it's not the worst thing I've ever seen, but it's not.
That's
It
not high
wasn't.
praise. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not. It's not saying much.
Right.
It's not the fault of the actors. I thought all the actors were great. It's just literally what they had to work with.
Well, Irish Elba is good in everything, so it definitely, was not the actor that if he couldn't pull it off. Matthew McConaughey is pretty good, so it's like, they have the talent there. Yeah, you're right. Do you have any movies that like kind of like are your favorites to kind of focus on the theme that you want to project?
Oh yeah, all the time. It depends on the project, though. So if it when it comes to Western horror, it would have to be, like I said, High Plains Drifter, Four from the Apocalypse by Lucio Fulci. Was it Diablo? That's a more modern one, and this one that came out a year or two ago with Sam Worthington called Last Son. That was a really good one.
Okay. I think like I don't know. I don't usually read the book and the movie, but whenever I read a book, it's like more comprehensive and then making a movie. People already talk it down. I don't know if they're just being haters, but like you don't capture what the book does, but it's kind of hard to capture what the book does unless it's like a Netflix series. And even
Right.
then, like look what they do with Game of Thrones. They mess it up. Like once they're in a source material, they're screwed.
Exactly. That was just the fault of the directors, those two not caring anymore. I'm hoping that House of the Dragon, which I'm enjoying so far, resurrects that franchise. I'm like, you have all the source material, just do that.
Well, I heard that the directors got the contract for the new Star Wars trilogy, so they wanted to like get rid of Game of Thrones so they could work on that. But the last season was so bad they got fired off the Star Wars trilogy.
Yep, it's one of those things of karma coming back to bite you.
So let's focus back on your writing for a minute. What got you involved in this? What did you start with?
Oh, so I grew up reading Brian Keene's novels. I loved his stuff. Read The Rising in 4 hours in a hospital waiting room, and from that point, I was like, I want to write a book and do some stuff on my own. That'd be a lot of fun. So I spent the next 4 years writing my first novel, and it's absolute garbage. It's terrible. It will never see the light of day.
Yeah.
It's in the trunk, and I occasionally pull it out to laugh at it, but that's
Well,
all about.
most authors say that. Like the first book I wrote is fucking horrible. It's like giant monsters in space or giant robots in space fighting monsters, and it's bad. Yeah.
Oh, this was even worse than like we switched from first person to third person, and there's like 50 different characters. It's ridiculous. Um, but from there, I wrote that. It was terrible. Tried submitting it. Absolutely not. So I decided to try my hand at writing shorter fiction, and I wrote two short stories my senior year of college, and they got accepted. And I was riding cloud nine. I thought I was awesome. It was all uphill from there. And for the next 5 years after that, I got rejection after rejection after rejection on everything that I submitted. And but that's just cutting your teeth. So about
Well,
2017.
it also doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. I mean, there's stuff that's put out by amazing authors, and it only gets published because of their name, and everybody like down cries it like American Psycho, British Snell. So everybody said it was
Yeah,
fucking horrible, and now it's a classic.
right. Well, I wasn't too worried about it. Well, at least on the other side of it, I was worried about it at the time. But I was told by I had dinner with Dallas Mayor, Jack Ketchum, and he told me, he's like, you cut your teeth on rejections, you're gonna get them. That's just part of it. And he's like, you'll get there. And right after that particular dinner, then I got accepted my first novel that was published, Catfish and Cradle, and help the story that went in the and Hell Followed anthology. Both of those were accepted pretty much. What was that? Within the year after that. So
Was that like you had the short story published, and there was a lull, and then that was published? Is that the way it went?
yeah, there was I got the short story published, and then within like a month, I got that novel published as well. So
What year was that?
that was 2018,
Okay, and
and
you've been going strong ever since then. Like,
yep.
did you have a little bit of like I don't know if this is for me. I don't know if this is gonna work out, and then that kind of like boosted your confidence.
No, I've always this has always been my dream to do it. I can't imagine doing anything different. It brings me joy to write and create. So that
You just
there
had to
is
figure
no
out a way to make it work.
exactly there is no other path.
Well, and a lot of the best authors like they die broke, and then people are like they were geniuses, like Lovecraft or Poe or anybody that was really good but ahead of their time. So
Right.
there's always that in the bag. You can always say, well, you know what, I had this coming up. People just weren't receptive to it. But I mean, you do have to listen to criticism, and take it with a grain of salt, but listen to it.
Oh yeah, my wife is my harshest critic. She does the edits on pretty much everything I write, and she is not soft or comforting about anything. One of my favorites is there's a short story I had published a year or two ago, um, called Threshing was the name of the story, and it involves a train wreck. And at one point, she left a comment in the story that said, "This sentence is a bigger train wreck than the one in this story, so fix it."
But I mean, she obviously means the best for you. Could you like
Oh yeah,
correct him before he goes out? Yeah. Is your wife big into horror?
oh yeah. We wrote a book together.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was the book that you guys wrote together?
Dust Bowl Children.
Okay.
It
And when did that come out?
came out last year. Yeah, last year, 2022. Came out in June or July of last year, July, and it was a dark retelling of Hansel and Gretel in the Great Depression.
No, that sounds interesting. Yeah.
Oh, it was. We had a lot of fun doing it. It's one of the darker, but like I always think in my mind when I write, I always have these ideas of like set pieces. So I have to make the writing describe it well. And that book was just a book of set pieces. It was great, and I really we really enjoyed doing it because we had a process, which is we take a song we really like, which is "Dust Bowl Children" by Alison Krauss and Union Station. We take a historical time period, Great Depression, Dust Bowl, and we take a fairy tale and we retell it. So we're working on another one right now with that same process.
Well, a lot of those initial fairy tales were very, very dark, and they were kind of like, like polished up and cleaned up for like, the American audience.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
so I think in the original Red Riding Hood, like the wolf eats her, and
Hmm.
like Hansel and Gretel, like the kids get cooked.
Right.
So when you did the thing on the Great Depression, do you do some like research into it, or reading into it, like maybe reading The Grapes of Wrath or something like that?
Yeah, we read a few books, nonfiction books from about that time period. Watched a few movies that take place in that time period, and luckily we live close to where the Dust Bowl actually happened. So we actually drove to where we set the story, and like just looked around out there, and picked out places and stuff to put in there.
Yeah, I think it helps a lot. Like it destroyed the Loch Ness monster, so I didn't want to write it until I went to the Loch Ness, and
Yeah,
you learn so much because it's in the Highlands. You're like, I didn't know that. I didn't know how far away it is from civilization, all that stuff. So yeah, no, it really helps if I love when people do their research.
yeah, because it shows. It really shows.
Yeah, it especially shows when they get something wrong and everybody calls them out on it. You
Yeah.
know. So how many books do you have out right now?
Uh, nine, nine, I think. The I'm trying to. I've got copies of my collection here, which hasn't been released yet. So, but is going to be within this year. So, there'll be 10. Yeah,
Oh, okay. Do you self-publish them? Do you have a publisher? Do you have a variety of different publisher
uh,
to use?
variety. So,
Okay.
a lot of my stuff. Perfectly Fine House was published by Grindhouse Press. Wrote that with Stephen Kosnewski. Catfish in the Cradle, Shades of the Black Stone, uh, Magpie Coffin, and For a Few Souls More were all published by Death's Head Press. Dust Bowl Children was published by Encyclopocalypse. Um, Disaster Pieces was published by uh, was South of Heaven Press, and my collection I'm just putting on my own through my own imprint, Nightblight Press, because I didn't want to take the trouble of trying to find a publisher when collections are a hard sell anyway. But I feel like everybody should have access to everything I've ever written for the most
Yeah,
part.
I've always heard that. I've always heard the short story collections are harder to sell than full novels.
Right.
Like
I
every
want.
publisher has told me that, like my latest anthology I put out, I just put it out myself. But I remember I talked to a couple of publishers and they didn't reject it, but they kind of seemed like, well, we don't know if it'll sell. I was like, I'll put it out myself. Fuck it.
Right. I I don't want my fans to have to search for the past like 6 7 years of anthology releases and like that. Here's a good majority of short stories from those years. So
Right.
it I'll put it out and make it easier.
Do you enjoy reading the short stories more, or do you enjoy a longer form?
It depends. I like both depending on it's more depending on the idea.
Okay. So do you have like a core idea and you base the story around your core idea?
Yeah. So I wrote a short story a couple months ago that uh, I submitted. It got rejected, and but now I'm expanding it out into a novella because everybody who reads it tells me it's great, and I've absolutely despised doing that
What,
because
expanding it, like adding
yeah,
on to it? Do
yeah,
you feel like
because
you're kind of like fluffing it a little bit? Like the meat of the story is there. Now you have to add a little bit more to make it, or do you figure that that's like a stronger, more like analytic take of what you're saying?
yeah, I definitely feel like I'm having to fluff it and add in stuff that wasn't there originally in order to but and still keep it coherent. It's just been absolutely terrible. I was like, this story was already completed. I don't feel like doing this again, especially with the it's even harder because I already know the beginning and I know the end, and now I'm just trying to fill in little gaps.
Okay. I just got the rights to my first couple novels back, and I reread them. I'm like, this needs an extensive edit. I mean, I write so much better now than I did when I wrote these like 14 years ago.
Oh,
Do
right,
you do the
for
same
sure.
thing? Do you go back and rewrite or re-edit some of the
Oh
old
yeah,
stuff?
for my short story collection that I'm going to release, the some of the older stuff in there, I went back and I didn't rewrite the whole thing, but gave it a fresh coat of paint, as it were. Made made the sentences stronger, deleted some stuff that was not necessary, that kind of thing. And for my first novel, which is out of print right now, I'm going to re-release it hopefully later this year with a new cover and new material in it to expect because there was some stuff that wasn't in the initial release that I wanted to be, but to get it under a certain word count, I had to delete some stuff. So I'm gonna do the author's expanded edition kind of thing.
Well, I don't know if you feel this way, but I felt like my first novel, especially like the first one always takes the longest to put out because like you're thinking about it and you're like questioning yourself. But so like I felt like it's a very strong story. I was like, it's just a shame that it's not as well told as I would tell it now. So
Oh yeah, for sure.
I go back to it and I'm trying to like keep the story, but just streamline it. And you kind of learn over time that, like, hey, you can just move words around in sentences and some of these flow way better and all that sort of stuff. It's like that's probably just typical author stuff, but over time you kind of learn what like what reaches the reader better, what they react to better, what's like is more impactful.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. The one of my biggest regrets from that first one is that I made the story take place over days when it should have taken place over years. That's one of the things I'm going to correct.
Okay. So is it fair? Like I know that because I was fighting forever to get my first two books back from the publisher. Like unfortunately, I went with a publisher that I should not have. But I mean, you don't know when you start out.
Right.
So when I finally got them back, from the publisher, and I'm like, re-editing and trying to retell them everything. I was like, before I got him back, and he made a huge sum of money just to get the rights back. I was looking at how can I republish it without having to get the rights back from him. It's like you have to change some high percentile of the words. In order it has to be significantly different. I think they said something like over a third of it has to be different than the original book.
Mm-hmm.
I
For
don't know. I don't know if you run into that. If you've heard that.
I I've heard of it, but I haven't had to deal with it yet because I was able to get my rights back for Shades and Catfish in the Cradle pretty easily.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. I wish it was that easy with everyone. The problem I think too is like a lot of the indie presses is great that they're out there because they get some real talent started, but some of them are going to have some really strange practices and they go through all these hands and the people going into the publishing world and whatever. Have you found a publisher that works really well for you?
There's a few. Encyclopocalypse has been great to work with. Grindhouse has also run by CV Hunt and is fantastic to work with as well. They both listen. They both they're always on top of royalty payments. They've never missed one. They've never given any cause for alarm or anything like that. And hopefully in the future, I've got another one that I'm in talks with that I've been friends with the people who run it for a long time, and hopefully that one's going to work out too.
Okay. Do they help market yourself? Do you have to like? I found with a lot of like smaller presses, you really have to market it yourself because you're not
Yeah,
Stephen King, so you're not going to be like on front display in Barnes and Nobles. What do you do as far as marketing?
yeah. For me, it was all social media and like word of mouth, getting it. And once readers start talking about it, then your marketing, you don't have to do anything because they'll market it for you.
Okay.
But
Do you
that's
go
been,
to any of the conventions or like run into the
oh yeah,
specials or like do book trailers or like there's a whole slew of stuff and some stuff works, some doesn't, and some just works for some authors and doesn't.
I've been more active on TikTok lately, making little just 5-second TikTok things about my books, and just little book trailers for it with sound effects and things that may make the most sense in regards to it. But I go to the conventions all the time too to just meet readers, get out there. Doing a book signing this Saturday in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So
Is book signing at commission or is it a bookstore?
bookstore, Gardner's
Okay.
used books. They the biggest bookstore in like uh west of the Mississippi. It's huge and it's great store. I love going there.
Yeah, that's what I kind of miss out on in New York is like we don't have those little mom and pop stores that are like centerpieces of the town. Everybody
Yeah,
knows you go there and check them out. But what's called Gardeners and what's the date of the book signing?
September 9th. So this Saturday.
Okay, awesome. And do you find that it helps a lot, like the meet and greets with all the people and talking? Like
Oh yeah.
I find when I do conventions, I sell more books because you talk to people and you engage with them, and they kind of don't know what to check out until you talk to them.
Oh, exactly. That's the reason why you do it, is to meet new readers and let your fans come out and meet you as well. They have books that need signing too. I've had the best sales. I know that sounds really mercenary, but it's true. I've had the best sales when I do like bookstore book signings, even over conventions.
But well, some people get like I don't know, they get real protective of like their favorite stuff and they don't want too many people into it. It's like the authors need to make money, man. I mean, how are they gonna put that stuff out if they're like broke and living in the gutter? Like Poe died in the gutter,
Right?
like Lovecraft died of cancer and it took him 4 months to go into the hospital to get checked out because he was so poor.
Right. And
Yeah.
that, if only they could see in the future where their work would end up being considered.
Lovecraft would be a multi-millionaire by now. Like everybody is like taking his stuff. But I think he has some great ideas. I think his prose is a little bit floored, a little bit purple. It doesn't bother me, but it's like not the easiest read for some people. I understand that, but his ideas are amazing.
Oh yeah, his ideas were amazing, minus the racism bits.
Well, I wouldn't count that as his ideas. I'm talking about the intergalactic horror
Yeah,
and all that
his
sort of stuff.
actual writing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Like I try not to judge people based on how they are in their personal life because then I might not like the band or the book or whatever. I mean, unless they do something over the top, like they're Nazi or something. I'm like, if they do that, it's kind of the point of no return. But other than that, I'm like, okay, all right, I'll give you a pass. I just like your work. It doesn't mean I endorse you as a person.
It depends for me if they're are they alive. It's easier for me to be able to read Lovecraft because like he's long dead, he's not benefiting from it. And there's some people I'm like the guy who made Jeepers Creepers and ended up being a pedophile or whatever. I'm like,
Oh yeah, yeah, I heard about that. I do like the movie though. The movie is
yeah, I was like,
awesome.
I love the movie, but I was like, I bought a used copy of it from a movie store instead of like direct. I was like, that no way will my money be going to affect you to help you in any way, shape, or form. So it's easy to separate the art from the artist for me, but I don't want them to benefit from said, enjoyment of work sometimes, depending on what it is or who it is.
Well, I guess you're right. It makes a huge difference. Like if they're dead, it's like, okay, I like this portion, and I don't like this portion. But if they're still alive, you're like, I don't want to give that fucker money.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, all right. So, do you have anything going on right now? You're working on something right now. You told me, right? And you got
Yeah,
your rights
yeah.
back.
I've
So,
got I've got two things going right now. Oh, three things going. So I'm finishing this novella, which was based on a short story I wrote, just expanded out, and it's a kind of a the color out of space
right?
meets Bird Box.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Did you see the Nicolas Cage Color Out of Space?
yeah,
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good.
I thought it was good as well. Um, but yeah, so basically these people in this small East Texas town, they're at this football game one night, and all of a sudden these like auroras, like the Northern Lights, come in, except they're all different colors, like yellow and pink and red, and people just can't stop staring at them. And as the main character goes through town on the next day, he hears people's stories about what they experienced during the night, and like he wakes up and he notices his dog's gone, and he
The
notices
shoe
that
got this here instead.
no, the dog's gone, the flies are gone, all the animals are gone,
Okay.
and he just sees people just out staring at the lights, and just gets worse from there. And then
Okay.
the
And
other
what was that called? That's a short story in a collection, or that's individual
that's a
piece?
that it was based on a short story that I'm now expanding. The title is called "Look to the Skies,"
Okay, is
and
that available now, or that's going to be
no, it's
available?
going to be.
Okay.
And the other big one I'm working on right now is I don't have a title for it yet, but I call it my neo slasher novel because it's my elevator pitch for it is what if Michael Myers therapy had actually worked? And I know that sounds funny, but it ends up being way worse because basically the main character, she comes back to town. She killed 19 of her classmates in 1996. Comes back to her hometown, and none of the survivors know that she was the one under the mask, and so she's interacting with all these survivors of her initial rampage, and is struggling with her urges throughout the whole thing because she doesn't regret anything that she did, but she knows that she should.
And that's a story you're working on right now.
Yeah, that's the one I'm working on right now.
Okay, but that's not out yet. That's going to be a collection of your short stories
No,
or
that's gonna be a full novel.
full novel.
Yeah.
So, what are you doing right now? You said you're putting together a collection of your short stories, and you're working on a full
Okay,
novel.
so the collection is already finished. It's already got a cover. I need to get an ebook made. Then I'm throwing that up and making it available. But it's got 15 of my short stories, I believe, and one novella in it.
Okay.
That's called the Southern Gentleman's Guide to Murder and Persuasion. And that if anybody listening or watching this is coming out to Tulsa on Saturday, I actually do have physical copies of it. And
Okay.
it's not available yet for the masses.
There's kind of like preview special copies. If they come
Yeah.
see you, you sign for them.
Yep.
Okay. Do you have a Amazon authors page?
Yep. Absolutely.
Okay. And are you on anything else like Goodreads or anything like
Yep.
that?
I'm on Goodreads. I've got a Substack newsletter that I do every week. It's called Transmissions from Black Hole Planet 3.
Oh yeah.
I've got Twitter, Texas Cthulhu. I've got Blue Sky, also Texas Cthulhu. I've got my Facebook page, which is Wile E Young. And yeah, and I got my TikTok page as well.
You don't do those dances with the tutu yet?
No, not yet. We're saving that for a rainy day.
Have you seen the Jeff Strand? It looks like he just got on there, but he's doing some really amusing videos. Like
Oh yeah,
he rewrote Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. He doesn't remember being pelted by tomatoes while he's like holding a book, and it's pretty funny.
oh yeah. Jeff is hilarious. I love all the stuff that he does. There's actually a video of him on YouTube reading something about like Crazy Ralph's used cars, and it's hilarious.
It's funny because he's like kind of a mild mannered guy when you meet him, and
Yeah,
then he'll do all this funny stuff. So yeah, that's awesome. All right. So do you have a website where people can get a hold of you and see your stuff, or do you have a blog, or
yeah. That my Substack has all that information on it. You go there; it has all the relevant links and how to get a hold of me.
okay, would the best way to get a hold of you be on Facebook?
Facebook, Twitter, anywhere. If you message me, I'll end up seeing it.
Anyway, you'll end up saying, okay. And do you have anything else that you want to promote? Like anything that you want to put out there? Like, you
Yeah,
know,
I've got three things. One is my co-authored book with my wife, Dust Bowl Children, which I'm very very proud of. I think that's honestly the scariest thing I've written so far. And
okay,
two, For a Few Souls More, which is the sequel to the Magpie Coffin. I think that's the deepest thing and the most fun thing I've written so far. And then my newest work, which is two separate stories, one written by me, one written by Wesley Southard. It's called Disaster Pieces. That's also available now, and it's a non-supernatural, natural disaster horror stories, and it turned out very well.
okay, awesome. And what publisher is going to be available through, or are you putting them out yourself?
They are all available. Disaster Pieces was through South of Heaven Press. Dust Bowl Children was through Encyclopocalypse Publications, and For a Few Souls More was put out by Death's Head Press.
Okay, do you have a convention that you're going to in the near future where people can check you out and buy your stuff and get you signed books?
Not until next year, but like I said, I do have a couple book signings coming up. One is in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Another one's in Atlanta, Texas, at an undisclosed date as of yet. We're still working that out. But the Tulsa, Oklahoma one, that's this weekend at Gardner's Used Books.
Okay, and do you know what the one in Texas is going to be? Like where it's going to be, the location?
Not yet. We're working on that. Might be at the library, might be at a local business. Just depends.
Okay. All right. So if people want to get a hold of you, if they want to like option your stuff to like make a movie out of it or make a series like a Netflix series like Stranger Things, is there a way they can get a hold of you?
Yeah. So all my contact information is on my Substack. Substack. It's also on. I have a blog called Adventures in Absurdity that has all my relevant links as well. And if you shoot me a message on Twitter at Texas Cthulhu or Facebook, I'll get back to you as well.
Okay. And last thing, do you have any like books or movies that you want to recommend that people should check out? They're kind of like in the vein of what you're feeling or thinking.
Feeling or thinking right now? Ooh, that's a good question. Movie. Okay. Uh, so one of my favorite movies of all times. I watch it like 8 times a year. The 1988 Blob. There, that's the movie I'll recommend.
Like I remember I think it was Neil deGrasse Tyson was on Joe Rogan. He was talking about how like people feature aliens in like books or movies or whatever, and most of the time it's very humanoid. He's like that is not probably how aliens would look. They'd probably be so incredibly different from anything that you're used to. He's like, in fact, it would amaze me if they had DNA. And then he said the most realistic alien portrayal you've seen is the Blob.
Yeah, for
It's,
sure.
it's just like this totally non-humanoid creature that comes to Earth and creates havoc.
Exactly. Well, at least you got it right.
Well, I think he also said like I think Steven Spielberg did Titanic and he had like the wrong the wrong setting of the stars in the sky and I guess he wasn't a big enough name, so he said something to him and like got blown off. And then when he got re-released, Spielberg was like, "Hey, you might want to check this out," and they
Right.
edited it just for him. But yeah, no, well, good news. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for sharing everything. Do you have anything else that you want to tell me, that you want to promote, that you want people to check out? Unfortunately, we're probably not going to get this up before you do your book signing this weekend. But
Easy come, easy go.
but let me know if you set up the text one, the location, where all that's going to be. And
Yeah, absolutely.
again, thank you very much for doing this, even though I know we had some problems with like time zone and the deadlines
Yeah.
and all that sort of stuff.
Well, thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you very much.
Yep.
All right.
Peace.